You're listening to the Sticks in the Six podcast. Here are your co-hosts, Andrew Forbes, Peter Barricini, and Alex Hobson.
Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to episode 162 of the podcast Sticks in the Six, here brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network, DraftKings, and with some good news, now Manscaped. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce that smooth sack summer is officially upon us. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from pubes to bum. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make this season your smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Get 20% off plus free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and you use code THPN. Summertime and the trimming is easy. Sick and tired of those little nicks on the old ball sack? Well, the Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra has everything you need to prepare that summer bod. Every man knows how scary it can get when going for a close shave below the belt. That's why I trust Manscaped for all my sensitive areas. Inside this package, you'll find the star of the show, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. The 5th generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. You also have dual LED spotlights to provide contrast on multiple skin tones, 3 length setting combs, and oh, did I mention this trimmer is waterproof too? Beach, lake, or shower, this razor will devour even the strongest pubes. Now that you have the perfect haircut, use Manscaped's liquid formulations to keep that freshness even at the hottest summer barbecues. The Crop Soother, aftershave lotion, and the Crop Preserver anti-chafe ball deodorant. Once they touch your sack, you'll never go back. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 5.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. More wet products? Say no more. Manscaped's new Buff Bundle is all you need to keep the summer heat at a breeze. This bundle includes their signature silicone scrubber plus body wash. Ditch your nasty loofah and grab a taste of freshness. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. It's smooth sack summer, boys. Get on board or get left behind. Well, a little bit of a tongue twister on the first read of the Manscaped smooth ball summer or smooth shave summer. So yeah, there you go. THPN.
A lot of great points there for the new performance package there. So
yeah,
Manscaped is coming up big and strong right now.
Go get the Lawnmower 5.0 for those summertime barbecues. Anyways, yes, so we have great, obviously off the top of the show, Peter, great news. We got some new sponsors coming to THPN. We've got another one coming soon. We'll let everybody in on that when it is finalized, but they're Kyle and Dylan doing some big work over at THPN, making the network even bigger and better than it already was. So we appreciate all that they do behind the scenes, stuff that you don't see all the time. But Peter, not a lot of Maple Leafs talk this week. Obviously, episode 162. We're kind of getting in those dog days. The playoffs are kind of finalizing here. Florida obviously up 2-0. We'll talk a little bit about that off the top of the show here. But you and I were at the Combine this week. We're going to talk about that mostly this episode. Before we get into all that fun stuff, I know Alex isn't here. He's still probably on that high from the French and fried big victory party they had. But how are you doing this week, my friend?
Yeah, this is kind of Alex's championship parade kind of thing. So we'll let him have his day with the cup, have some fun and everything like that. But congrats to Alex, on his championship ball hockey tournament or season. Can't be more proud of him with all the stories that he's told us. So I'm doing good. obviously busy weekend that we talked about with the combine and everything, pumping out, a lot of articles and a lot of content for the draft. Same with you as well. Really some really interesting tidbits that I'm getting to right now, especially, we've talked about this. We're going to talk about one of the players there, but man, this combine was probably the most, interactive, but also on a personal and relatable level for all the players, because they were having a good time with everything. And I've gone this was my third time going. The previous two, answers were kind of like not necessarily robotic, but they wanted to make sure they were setting the right impression. Players at that day or in Buffalo were having a lot of fun and having a great time. I don't know what it was like for you previously as well when you've gone before. I don't know, like, if this is like the most personal experience that you've had where the players are that open and having a fun time. But for me, it was just great to see everybody smile, have fun, crack some jokes, give their takes on the interviews. It was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I think this year probably had more universal freedom in terms of the players' personalities. I think in past years you've had your Colby Barlows who were getting into some of the scrums and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But this was the first year where you saw most of the players just there was a closeness, I think, amongst a lot of them. There was guys who knew each other, guys who grew up together, guys who got to room with each other at the combine, who were also roommates maybe with the development program and stuff like that. So you got a little bit more of a feel. You got a lot more college players coming up, I think, in the first couple rounds this season than we have in previous years. So obviously, going to college, you've got a little bit more personality as well. You get a taste to be a regular 19, 20, 21-year-old rather than, leaving home and going to whether it be the development program or the BCHL or what have you to kind of, pursue that dream of hockey. So there was definitely more personality. And you had a lot of international players as well. So you always get a little bit of a different, feel from those guys, a little bit more culture, a little bit more, this is how I grew up, and they've got a different personality. I know, we're going to get into it, but Solberg was a guy that, he did a couple eye rolls in his scrum too. Like, it's just like you could see the personality coming through. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to. But, as you mentioned, it's something that you've done for the past 3 years. It's something that I've done probably, I want to say, aside from COVID, probably, I want to say I'm getting close to doing a decade of the NHL Combine, which is great. Big shout out to Mark Shegg, who got us both there. We get to catch up with Mark Shegg as well at the Combine, which is always nice. That guy is an absolute beauty. We've had him on the show a few times, and I'm sure we'll get him on again, especially with news breaking Columbus that Patrick Laine wants out. It's always a good time, and like you said, we're gonna get into that in a little bit here. But before we do, I just mentioned it. Patrick Laine wants a fresh start in Columbus. I want to get your thoughts on this because it's not the first time that this guy's asked out of a city. And first it was Winnipeg, now it's Columbus. At what point does this become, a recycled storyline with a particular player? And let me say off the top here, no hate towards Patrick Laine. Obviously, this guy's gone through his own mental health struggle. So I understand that sometimes you need a new setting, a fresh start, what have you. That said, I mean, this is a guy who went second overall, and it seems like his career's not really playing out the way that maybe some would have thought going into his professional career.
Yeah, no, like you said, I mean, even Mark alluded to the fact that there's still comments being made about Laine still being in the players assistance program, and it's just gutless, classless, whatever you want to call it. Like, the guy's seeking the help that he needs to get and to get back on track, whatever was affecting him. That's the most important thing right now. For the longest time, for the first 2-3 years of their career, it was always the battle between who was the better shooter, Austin Matthews or Patrick Laine kind of thing. And they were going neck and neck at it. Like, Laine's shot was absolutely phenomenal, but then there was a little bit of a lull. Play started to dip. Started in Winnipeg. It kind of carried over. It seemed like he started to peak a little bit better with Columbus. I don't know if it's just like the system or what have you, but yeah, no, it's you don't want to continue to recycle this storyline because this is now the second time where he's requesting a trade out. but you have to think that it's for more of like his mental well-being or mental health or something like that. I don't think that, I can't, speculate on anything like that. We just know that, still in the program, agents had conversations with the Blue Jackets. They feel it'll be best if they move on. And it was noted in insider trading as well. Like both sides want to give that player a fresh start, hit Laine's camp and the team itself. So right there, that, they're on the same page, which is really good. It's not going to end very poorly in terms of like, a bad taste in both the player or team's mouth. But I do think it has something to do with him and trying to, get back onto a fresh start, because it seemed like he was still dealing with stuff when he was traded from Winnipeg to Columbus. And I think now that this is like probably the fresh start 2.0, where it's like, start from 0 kind of thing. You're not dealing with a lot. He's going to have a clear mind if and when he does come out. And I think that's going to be huge for him, his confidence in his play going forward. If that is the case, again, I don't want to speculate. That's just my take right then and there. Hopefully that when he comes out, it's a fresh start for him overall as a player and for his well-being.
Yeah, I think that was my follow-up to you, and again, no discrediting what Laine's been able to do thus far in his career. Obviously a lethal shooter when he's on his game. He's obviously dealt with some injuries over the past couple seasons as well, on top of whatever he's dealing with now, and we won't speculate on that. That said, is this a player that you feel could get back on track? I mean, we mentioned, second overall pick. He's a guy that could easily put up 50 goals. I don't think there's any question if he's in the right situation. But you're starting to get a feel that, and let's be honest, it's sports. You got a fan base they're gonna hate on him regardless of what he's gone through, and that's the unfortunate part about fandom and not understanding the whole picture. But is this a guy that is going to find the right situation and find a spot where he can kind of get his career back on track and, maybe reach that plateau of a 50 goal scorer?
Yeah, you always want to. I mean, because there were only basically two players that excelled in their draft year, two players that excelled at the World Hockey Championships. Again, Austin Matthews and Patrick Laine. Those were the two names. That was going to be 1-2. But yeah, it seemed like after that third season in Winnipeg, actually, no, he had, he had 64 points in his rookie year, 70 the year after that with 44 goals, kind of dipped down to 30-20, but then he picked it back up 28, 35, and 63. He developed a bit of more of a playmaking aspect to his game. Then there was, the bad year, the COVID year where, everything just went to hell. Like it affected everybody and affected his play as well. But then in 21, 22, and things started to come back, 22, 23, seemed like he was starting to pick it up a little bit more, be a little bit more of a playmaker as opposed to a shooter. This season dealt with injuries, dealt with, again, his mental health and well-being. This was probably the worst season for him in regards to like just his overall, like, well-being. And hopefully that there's always going to be a team that'll find a place for a natural goal scoring talent like Laine. Like they're like, just like, again, nothing is imminent with Mitch Marner, but there are teams going to be lining up for a playmaker like him. There are definitely going to be teams lining up for a guy who could put the puck in the net like Laine. That was a bit of a tongue twister there. I do think that there is a possibility that he can. I don't know if he's going to be a 60, 70 point guy, but if he's going to be a consistent 50 point producer, power forward, maybe not necessarily that type of, player, but he's got the size that he could use that to his advantage to shield the puck and, get to the middle of the ice and unleash his shot. There's definitely going to be a team that could turn things around for him and give him a better spot in order to succeed. Because even last season, Columbus wasn't no way in shape to compete at any point. That's why they're, top 5 pick in this year's draft. You want to make way for their younger stars as well coming up in the system. Think that plays a factor as well. And I hope that, he does get back on track because he was a dynamic player in the first 4 or 5 seasons of his career.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, if you look at his point totals, he's got over 200 goals in 480 games. So I mean, he's almost averaging a goal every 2 games. He's also a guy that he's got I believe it's 300. Sorry, just let me pull it up here. 388 points in 488 games. So he's
Yeah.
almost averaging a point a game.
Mhm.
Like this is a guy that the talent is there, the skill is there, maybe the mental capacity in tough situations is something that is brought into question in terms of his overall productivity. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see which route this goes. And I do agree with you. I think that any team not willing to make a little bit of room for a guy that can obviously put the puck in the net, they're not looking at things seriously. But at the same time, people are going to take into consideration what he's gone through over the past couple seasons. People are going to take into consideration the fact that now in two separate cities, one obviously a Canadian city, heightened media coverage, whatever. One obviously Columbus, maybe a little bit quieter, be able to move around a little bit more. And in both situations, he's asked out, and I think that that's something that teams will consider as well. I do think his market value does go down, unfortunately, in a situation like this. That said, I mean, like you said off the top, he's got to look for a situation that's best for him, his mental capacity. The team has to look to move him because obviously he's not going to be any value to them if he's not able to play in the lineup. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. You did mention Marner. We will get into that a little bit later, but one other note I wanted to talk about is the fact that the Florida Panthers are up 2-0. It was just released that both Tarasenko and Barkov will be in the lineup tonight. So I mean, obviously good to see. I don't know what you thought about the Draisaitl elbow. Obviously no further discipline aside from the penalty given in the game. But your thoughts on the final so far? Is this going to be a 4-game sweep? I took the Panthers in 5, so I gave Edmonton 1. I think they get one here in game 3, but I do think it's going to be a quick series for the Florida Panthers. What are your thoughts, Peter?
Yeah, I initially had like maybe a 6 or 7 game series. I don't feel like that's going to be the case right now because Edmonton had a chance to take game 1 when Florida wasn't at their best. And in the Stanley Cup Finals, when you make those split-second mistakes that cost you 1 goal, that's all you need to try to basically lose a game when it matters most. It happened in previous other series, but Edmonton was able to come back. I don't know if they're able to do it because the physicality, the forechecking ability, the quickness, and the speed that the Florida Panthers have is basically negating everything that the Oilers can do. McDavid's been very quiet. Draisaitl's been invisible. Defense are making costly mistakes. I know that there was that first Evan Rodriguez goal where it was like the cough up by Bouchard, but then a miscue from I believe it was also Ryan McLeod. So you're having both defense and your bottom 6 not living up to expectations right now. Hard to fault Stuart Skinner at any point because that was my big question mark. I think Bobrovsky's been lights out and he's been outperforming him in the series, but Skinner hasn't gone to help when the team has made the mistake. And he's tried to keep his team in there. So there's a good sign right there. But can it happen again? Because they've been down 2-0 in previous series. It's very difficult to come back against this Panthers team because they're so deep top to bottom, up front, on the back end. It kind of feels like it's going to be a shorter series than everyone expected. I hope I'm wrong, but that's the sense that I'm getting right now from just the first 2 games because even when Florida wasn't at their best, they still won it. Even in game 2, that was their better game. They won that. So now that they're at their peak right now, it's going to be tough to try and slow them down.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, we talked about injuries a little bit. There is no update on Nurse. There's no update on Evander Kane on the Edmonton side.
I did see there was a clip of him at practice where he goes on for 5 minutes and then leaves. Yes, so that's automatically not a good sign.
Yeah. I did talk about, I think it was last week or the week prior, that I do think in terms of who comes out better for defense goaltending. Florida's got the better defense, better goaltending. I think that's been a standout so far in this series. You can tell that by the fact that the Oilers have one goal coming from a defenseman rather than their top guys putting the puck in the net. And that's who's carried them to the Stanley Cup final was their top forwards. Bobrovsky's a favorite right now to win the Conn Smythe, so he's been lights out, as you mentioned. And it really does look like Florida series. It looks like once again the Cup won't be coming north of the border. But there's anything can happen. They're down 2-0. Game 3, I think, is an important game back here in Edmonton. But it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Obviously, Tkachuk has been a rat the same way that he has been this entire time. We've seen Evander Kane kind of give him a glove to the face. Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics has come out and said, I'm a big fan of Matthew Tkachuk. We've obviously seen the photos of them growing up together, going to school together. So, obviously Boston's up 3-0 in their series. Florida's up 2-0 in their series. So a lot of fun playing inter sports there. But
I want to know if both Matthew Tkachuk and Jason Tatum will have like a dual championship day with their trophy kind of thing.
Maybe like a high school reunion.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. That would be very fun.
Yeah.
To both have the Stanley Cup and the Larry O'B at the, their high school. That would be absolutely fun to see.
Be interesting to find out if that's ever happened before where they've had, both trophies in the same room at the same time, celebrating wins. Be interesting to find out. So if any viewers out there know an answer to that, that'd be fun to know. Shoot us a quick message. Let us know. Anyways, as I mentioned, Bobrovsky is the favorite for the Conn Smythe Trophy. If you're willing and interested, you could always throw a quick little wager on that over at DraftKings Sportsbook, big sponsor of the Hockey Podcast Network. And the chase for the Stanley Cup is on, and if you're looking to light the lamp, nothing beats the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. From the start of the playoff beards all the way till the hoisting of the cup, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more. As I mentioned, Bobrovsky right now is, I believe, minus 220 to win the Conn Smythe Trophy. Obviously MVP of the playoffs. So if you want, check that out. Throw futures down. There's only maybe at most 5 games left of the final. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. New customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's code THPN only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.co/ice for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved. Well, with that, like I said, not much news on the Leafs front aside from what they did at the NHL Combine. So we might as well jump right into the NHL Combine. If you had 3 major takeaways, not even Maple Leafs related, but 3 major takeaways from the NHL Combine, Peter, what would they be?
Oof. Watch out for the stock of EJ Emery and Stein Solberg. We are going to talk about them, but I'm just saying overall, if you're a team looking for a defensive, because this is the defenseman draft where it looks like Artem Lashunov is probably going to go number 2. That is, I would also say that's probably the big storyline. What's going to happen after Celebrini? I think there was the talk about either Demidov or Lev Shunov because Chicago does have a need to get a dynamic winger in Ivan Demidov. But they also need a right shot defenseman. And I think that will balance out with Kevin Korchinski on the back end. So it would make sense with either player, but it's looking like Lev Shunov may be the direction that they're going in right now. So that is number 1. Number 2, obviously you have Sam Dickinson, Zane Parag, Zeev Boyum, Carter Yakimchuk as Anton Saleyev as like the next crop of defensemen to go. But it's interesting to see who's going to go after that. And I think both Emery and Solberg with his play overall in the second half, but Emery with his testing and physicality, I think that's going to stick well with a lot of teams that they could possibly be top 20 players. So it'll be interesting to see that if they could vault any of the two. I think maybe even Yakimchuk or Saleyev could probably surpass them as a defender to be taken before one of those two. Also, like, it's not a great draft for Swedes, but there were like, players like Lucas Pettersson, Alphonse Frey, a lot of Swedes there that did the testing and did fairly well. So hopefully that's some like reassurance that they may not be high on a lot of teams' lists, but they're definitely worth being late first round picks. So hopefully that we get to see a board where I can't remember the last time where there was probably a Swede not taken in the first round. I know that this is a shock to see not any Swede in the top 10, top 15, top 20, but I would say that, if you're looking for a Swedish like forward defender, what have you, and Frey, Pettersson, believe even Carlson as well. Those are some names that could be taken overall as, late first in that 26 to 32 range. So those are probably three names that I would keep an eye out for as well in the later part of the draft.
Also worth noting that I don't know where I was going with that. I don't know. I have no idea where I was going with that. Anyways,
it'll probably come around.
Yeah, it'll come around. Very good. Yeah, very good takeaways. Obviously, you, myself, Mark, we got into a lot of scrums, got to talk to a lot of the prospects. Like always, Macklin Celebrini had like the utmost confidence. I don't know if you got a chance to kind of get in close with him, and just the kid seems like he's a rock when it comes to emotions. Mm-hmm. A couple takeaways that I had. I think Cole Eiserman's going to be playing north of the border next season, or sorry, not next season, but within the next couple of years once he cracks an NHL lineup. I do think it'll be north of the border. I don't think his stock has fallen nearly as much as some people think. Obviously, a guy who struggles away from the puck, but maybe one of the best shots in the draft. You mentioned it's a defensive draft. I spoke to Carter George of the Owen Sound Attack, arguably one of the top two goaltenders in the draft. Again, when it comes to confidence, this kid is like a rock. We talked to him about, playing the goaltending position, what he has to do mentally to prepare, how he has to mentally prepare for something like the Combine where he's looked at differently. And even like one of the questions asked was about, going into interviews, do you think it was more about you or finding out how other players shoot? And he was like, you like to think it's about you. I do think it was about me. I had a lot of good interviews. So again, Carter George, watch out for him. There's potential he could be the first goaltender off the board, but I think he's definitely one of the first two. And then, I think O'Reilly's going to be an undervalued pick in this draft. I think he's a guy that's very blue collar, very like Zach Hyman-ish in terms of what he does. He brings a physical game. He's a big body. He's a big boy. And then the other one I was thinking of, Aaron Kiviharu. Man, like I saw the scar on his knee from his knee surgery. He went into this year as maybe a top 10 pick. Everyone knew who he was. He was an offensive-minded defenseman. He's a guy that could play with the puck. He could move. He's silky. The way he skated was just unbelievable.
Great poise.
Got the knee injury. Missed huge amount of time at the beginning of the season. Came back about midway through. And obviously the confidence shook at that time. You kind of are trying to catch up to the rest of the guys. And I think he's going to be a guy that's undervalued in this draft. I think he slips a little bit, and I think he's going to end up being a really great pick. Let's remember, coming back from a knee injury, he's probably still not 100%, but give this kid some time to kind of get back to that level. And I think we're talking about a pretty damn good defenseman in the 2024 draft, a draft that's full of defensemen in that first round. It's maybe one of the most defensive rounded first rounds we're gonna see in a long time. So,
speaking of
yeah,
confidence as well, I saw a clip of Dominic Bedenka saying that he views himself as a first round talent, and you talked about confidence too. Like some of the players having that, that's what you want to see too. You don't want to see players, second guess themselves or like they feel like, maybe expectations aren't as high, but they want to be that player to be in the first round and be a reliable player for the team that they're selected for. So that was a great thing to see from him because I have him as one of the Maple Leafs defense targets. We couldn't confirm if I missed the scrum, couldn't see if he met with the Maple Leafs or not, but he's someone that I definitely think would be a great addition on the Maple Leafs side if they were to pick him. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but yeah, that was just one thing I wanted to add because you talked about the confidence for Kiwi Harvey, George, all those players that I just chime in there for a quick second.
Yeah, absolutely. And great transition to our next point here. Obviously, there were a lot of players that the Maple Leafs met with. We didn't really get too much feedback on if any were wined and dined with the Leafs. That said, the Leafs did host a number of players back in Toronto following the combine in Buffalo. It wasn't. I know the question's going to be, well, didn't Arizona do that a few years ago and lose a first round pick and all that kind of stuff? It's not the same thing.
No.
It is the off season. I don't believe they were hosting an on ice tryout the same way. Like the Arizona Coyotes kind of hosted with Chayka, kind of hosted a.
It was their own combine before the combine.
Yes,
this is actually it happened afterwards. After the NHL Combine, teams can meet up and I think maybe do on ice testing. I'll have to try and search that up, but I know they can meet with them afterwards.
Yeah, my understanding wasn't that they were going to have on ice testing. My understanding was that they were going to have follow-up interviews with these players.
Their own event,
Toronto.
yeah.
Yeah, and almost maybe that's when they'd take them to wine and dine. Maybe, I don't know whether True Living couldn't be there or somebody couldn't be there or what have you. But I forget which player it was said that they were going to Toronto for the day, meet with the team, and then they were flying back home that evening or the next morning. So it wasn't going to be like a 2-day event. It was more like they were coming by, meeting with the team, maybe having some follow up, and that was it. So interesting little fact. I'm not sure if other teams are doing the same thing. There was a lot of conversation around the Toronto Maple Leafs doing just that and having that kind of that event post combine. So that's an interesting fact as well for those following the Maple Leafs. With that, obviously, we're going to get into a few players here that the Leafs talked to. And obviously, you and I were kind of on top of that in terms of like reporting a lot of who the Leafs were having conversations with. I know our friend of the show, Mike Agello, was there as well. He was looking at that, looking at the Buffalo Sabres, all that kind of stuff as well. So there was a lot of conversation with the Leafs in terms of some of these top end players. Interesting. As of right now, the Leafs still hold a first round pick. It's a later first round pick, I believe 23rd, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, early 20s.
Early 20s. So, anyways, with that, I know you were in the scrum with EJ Emery. What were your takeaways from EJ Emery? Obviously, a guy that met with the Leafs, big defenseman. What are your thoughts on EJ Emery?
Big, strong, smart. Everything that you want in a right shot defenseman. I've seen a lot of his play as well from like U18s and throughout the season. He may not produce numbers, but he's a guy that you could rely on in any situation. Maybe not so much the power play. I would like to see him use a shot, but his ability to break up entries, get in the lanes, be a physical presence and force. He likes to play that style of game, and that was one of the main things that I took away from that is that his confidence and his strength is going to go a long way for his future as an NHLer. Now, like I said, I do believe that he may have improved his stock overall with the testing. Maybe he may not be there when the Leafs select, but he's definitely the player that they have that can have that snot, piss, and vinegar type of player on the back end. I know they could use a player right now and it may take some time for him to get to that next level, maybe 2, 3, 4 years, but they lack that type of player in their system. Yeah, they have a lot of skill, but they need a lot more physicality to go along with that smarts and that IQ. And Emery's got all three right there. So that is a perfect selection for me. If he's available, it should not be a second guess for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As you mentioned, this is, obviously a player that's kind of fits well into the draft right now. It's, obviously a defensive heavy draft. EJ Emery, I believe, is heading to North Dakota next season. Is it University of North Dakota he's heading to?
Yes.
Yeah, so he'll jump into the NCAA. We talked a little bit about how there was more college players coming up, more what am I thinking here? More European players coming in. So obviously this is a guy who was in part of the development program. As you mentioned, big defenseman, 6'3", roughly 190. For all the heights and weights, check out Mark Shagg's piece. He covers that yearly, which is great. Kind of what they weigh in. But I mean, a guy who isn't maybe offensively minded the way that some of these other guys in the draft are, some of these other defensemen. Only had 16 assists in 61 games last year at the development program, 6 assists in the USHL with the national team development juniors. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do at North Dakota, but he's a guy that the Leafs need. The guy is huge. He's a big body. He plays physical. He can play the defensive side of the puck, and that's what the Leafs have been missing for so long. Obviously, they've got guys like Jake McCabe who've come in and kind of transition that game a little bit, where, you don't have a back end that's strictly offensively minded. But a guy like EJ Emery would come in and especially knowing that they have a Topi Niemela, in the pipeline. He's a guy that is very offensive as well. So to add a guy like EJ Emery to that prospect pool would just be an exciting move for this team and something that the Leafs obviously need. I think.
Sorry. I just wanted to add a quick thing. You mentioned Jake McCabe right there. He's basically the right shot Jake McCabe. If he could add a little bit more offense, that's the ideal player comparable of what he could be. And just looking at who's going to be on North Dakota next year, Andrew Strathman drafted last year, Will Zellers, Max Swanson, and Sacha Boisvert, who is supposed to be another first rounder this year that I think could still be, a good option for the Maple Leafs as well, if he's available. So just looking at a future look for Emery and the players he's going to be with next season.
Absolutely. And another guy that I think both of us were in on the scrum on Stein Solberg. This guy has such an interesting story, and I don't know. You were there for the line. This might be the quote of the combine. The line on how he became a defenseman, because let's be honest, Solberg was a forward at one point in his career. Took to defense. Obviously, a guy that is offensively minded. Does have that ability to move the puck well and transition the game well and quickly, but. Give us a little insight. How did this guy become a defenseman in the first place?
So I can't remember if it was myself or someone else, but it was a follow-up because I asked about his defensive game, and he's talked about 14 coming in as a defender, and then someone else asked, I believe it was someone else that they just asked, "Oh, how did you become a defender?" And he said it was a very funny story. So basically, on their junior or on the team that he was playing with at 14 years old, apparently one of the defenders that was on his team took a piss in the bathtub / shower. I'm going to have to go back to the recording. Pretty sure it was the tub. Coach didn't like it. Basically told the guy to not dress, and he goes to Stein and says, "Yeah, you're up. You're playing defense." And basically he hasn't looked back there. Hasn't looked back ever since in regards to that. But yeah, we talk about players. Oh yeah, I just made the jump from forward defense, nothing else in between. It's the fact that he took advantage of one of his teammates' situation because he peed in the tub. It's what's very funny. We all laughed, we all cracked a smile, and even Stein, gave a little smile too because he was just he said it was a funny story, and it really is. But yeah, because I was basically just talking about that physical game that he plays with on the back end, and it seems like I believe there was a little bit of a montage from Lassie Allanen, who tweeted a good 2-minute video of all the hits that Stein has made, bone crushing, standing tall, just leveling the opposition. And I know he's a left-hand shot, but man, would he be a pillar and a force on the Maple Leafs blue line. Like you said, and even like his puck mobility, his movement, and even his shot is pretty decent. He has a little bit more upside than EJ Emery in regards to offense, I would feel, but still plays with that tenacity, that aggressiveness, the ability to make an open ice hit along the boards or down low. He doesn't care who's there. Players need to check over their shoulders if Solberg is present or need to keep their head up, because he's going to basically run you over. And this is a guy that has that competitive edge and drive. And that to me is what stands out. He even tested well in the agility section of the testing, both left and right side. So here's a guy that, we talked about his movement and his foot speed. He's got some good agility and a good step. So, again, I mentioned Emery increasing his stock. Solberg is definitely one player that did as well. That could probably even go top 20 at this point.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's definitely a guy that I got the feeling that he certainly increased his stock with the combine. Again, we talked about Kiviharu, but this is a guy that also suffered an injury last season that kind of made him take a step back, and he admitted like he's probably not at 100%.
Yeah.
His was a back injury, and it was just purely fatigue. He said there was no one incident that kind of that injured his back. Rather, I believe he said it was his L5, and that he had to rest nearly the entire season last year. And that obviously affected his game as well. But he's one of the more well-rounded defensemen in this draft. He's got offensive prowess. He's got the ability to move the puck. He's a smooth skater, and he can play on the defensive end as well. And that's why, my latest rankings, I probably didn't do him enough justice. And I'll go back and I'm going to look at that, especially after talking with him and understanding, that there is a back injury there that did affect him, and that his game really came alive in the second half of this season. And I think that's why he was starting to get noticed again, was that, there was more game, more tape, more stuff that you could watch and see, what his abilities and what his, maybe fallbacks are. But that said, there's no question that this guy should be a first round pick. I don't think there's any question that he's going to be maybe top 20, and maybe the Leafs will miss out on him as well. But the Leafs did talk to him, and I could be wrong, but I believe he was part of that group that was heading to Toronto afterwards.
He was.
So it's interesting. It looks like the Leafs are looking to try and move up at some point in this draft. We'll talk about Cole Eiserman in just a moment. It's I think he's probably one of the more well-rounded defensemen in the draft. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on him, and obviously, from writing your piece on Solberg that, there's a big fan base for Solberg, and a lot of that is starting to fill up in Leafs Nation as well. So
I've been pushing Solberg since the World Championships, and some Leaf fans are starting to come on board. So yeah.
Yeah, look for two Norwegians to be the first two Norwegians to go in the first round. So him and Nygaard as well. So that'll be interesting. We got to talk about Jack Pridham. We were in on that scrum as well. Obviously, the son of the Cap King. I wrote a piece on it for the Hockey Writers.
Well, very well done.
And obviously, Dad wasn't in the interview with the Maple Leafs. Thank God, because that there'd be a lot of speculation around that.
Yeah.
But a guy that also is going to go the NCAA route next season, Boston University. If Macklin Celebrini goes back, he's got the opportunity to possibly play with Macklin Celebrini. There is some speculation that Celebrini could make the trip back to the NCAA this season as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. But BU is going to be stacked if that's the case. Pridham's another guy that maybe isn't getting enough attention. He's a guy that probably looking at a second round pick, but obviously saw some familiar faces in the Leafs organization when he was interviewing with them. after we were chatting with him, I did see him go over and talk to Kyle Dubas and Jason Spezza over at the Pittsburgh kind of corner at the
Yeah.
Combine. So he went to see some more familiar faces. But your thoughts on Jack Pridham, and is this a guy that could fit in nicely with the Maple Leafs?
Definitely can, because he has the compete level, the smarts, the work ethic, and even the shot too. Like, he basically popped off at the right time for the BC West Kelowna Warriors during the playoffs. And I believe he had 12 goals in that span. So this is a guy that really took hold of an opportunity when it mattered most, and he elevated his play, which is very, very phenomenal. Sorry, 8 goals in 10 games. Sorry, I messed up the numbers. I don't know why I was thinking 12. But yeah, 49 points in 54 games, 11 points in 10, 8 goals, really solidified his status as a top prospect in this draft. I'm not so sure if he'll be a second rounder, but I do think that maybe he could easily be great value as a third, fourth, or fifth. And the Maple Leafs do have a 4th round pick. So if he is available in that 4th round, I'd probably guarantee that it may be used on Pridham, because he does have that smarts. He does have the awareness. Likes to be in the right spots at the right time. Play seems to find him everywhere he goes. He's just got that awareness. And I think that because the team values that, it's something that his dad instilled in him, to be competitive, to work hard and be driven every time he's on the ice. I believe he said that in the scrum. I think he fits the bill, because he's got the size. Number one, he may need to bulk up a little bit more, but he's definitely got the size, the height, and the drive to be a very strong, player on his edges, has good speed, can attack the middle very well. Definitely one name to keep an eye on when you get to day 2 of the draft, especially if you're the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, he mentioned, you mentioned it too, the competitiveness, something that his dad mentioned. He wants to be the best at what he does. So the drive, the eagerness, that's all there. I think he's got a higher ceiling than what he's reached thus far.
Yeah.
And in the right situation, right development, I think he's gonna be a solid middle 6. So definitely a guy that I'll be watching at BU next season. No matter what team grabs him in this draft, but especially if Celebrini goes back, I think it's going to be fun to watch and see what he can do at BU next season. And BU, man, they could be a force next year if they get all their pieces back. So keep an eye on them for the Frozen Four. I talked a little bit about that for him. He said one of the big things about going to BU and the NCAA route too is just the education factor, and that's something that he's always wanted to have. And you got to respect it. Like I said, a lot of NCAA talk. The more and more we get into these NHL drafts, the more and more you talk about guys going the NCAA route, and it gives them a little bit more time to make that final decision as well. So I think that's something that's worth noting for Pridham anyways.
And before he made the jump to out west, he basically was second in scoring on St. Andrews College with 72 points in 49 games last season. So this is a guy that when he's a leader, he could do a lot of damage. And I think he's going to be relied on, and he's going to take that next step very well.
Absolutely. Again, another guy that I wasn't fortunate to get in the scrum for, but Andrew Basha, another guy that was heading to Toronto, had an opportunity to speak with the Maple Leafs. What were your takeaways from Andrew Basha?
It's funny because in January, when the Maple Leafs still had their first, I talked about players that can kind of fit the bill of what direction they wanted to go. And Basha was one of those players where he's very energetic. He's got good speed. He could attack the middle. I think there may be not necessarily a lot of concern about, play away from the puck, but he does have great sense and awareness of what to do on the ice. And obviously picked up his play when Caden Lindstrom was down in when he was dealing with his back injury as well. Really popped off this season, especially in the second half too, when they needed him to. And he was definitely a player that really caught my eye and overall as someone that could fit the Maple Leafs system. 85 points in 63 games, 30 goals, 55 points. He's a bit more of a playmaker, but he's very dynamic. Underrated shot. This is a guy that can deal a lot of damage, especially when he reaches his top speed, because he's very hard to contain when he does. I'm not sure what direction they're going to go, but he definitely fits the bill of, again, kind of like that competitive, hard-nosed, driven player that could provide a lot of offense for his team. So definitely, a name that really stood out before. And the fact that the Maple Leafs did meet with him kind of reassures my thought process of what direction they want to go, especially with Basha.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And last one here before we talk about Cole Eiserman, a guy again wasn't fortunate enough to get into the scrum for, but Lucas Pettersson. What were your takeaways for Pettersson?
Pettersson is a little bit different from all the other players that I mentioned. Maple Leafs are going for a work ethic, but Pettersson has that that skill, has a little bit more of that playmaking abilities. He manipulates plays very, very well, and he catches opponents off guard. He's very he has that offensive, mindset, but he can be very competitive as well. He does have a solid two-way game. I've seen, some people make comments that like, oh, I've heard that he's a bad defensive player. And I'm like, that's not really the case. Because he does have a very, well-rounded game when he doesn't have the puck and he's away from that. I think that he's very driven, very motivated, and again, the team may not need a center at this point because that is his natural position, but definitely someone that's definitely on their radar given what he could be. So interesting to see how it's going to play out, because if you have Austin Matthews as your one center, we don't know what's going to happen with Tavares, but with you have Easton Cowan, Fraser Minton in the system already, Lucas Pettersson up the middle will give them that reassurance. And he definitely looked really good at the U18s as well. Was an assistant for Sweden, 8.7 games to win a bronze medal. So he definitely has what it takes to be relied on in key situations.
Well, I'm not going to get myself too excited about the possibility of Cole Eiserman in a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey in the seasons to come.
Let's do it. Why not?
Why not? The Leafs did talk to Cole Eiserman. Obviously, a guy who played in the development program. You and I discussed the possibility of Eiserman and Matthews playing together at some point. There's obviously the conversation that I believe that the Montreal Canadiens did wine and dine Cole Eiserman. The belief is that him and Caulfield would make a great duo as well. And I think he would excel under Martin St. Louis at the helm as well. So Cole Eiserman, a lot of conversation this draft has been the fact that Cole Eiserman's kind of fallen out of that top 5, top 10 into a maybe top 15 pick. His draft stock has fallen, not solely because of his play, but maybe the play of those around him who have lifted their level. But what are your thoughts on Cole Eiserman? Is this a guy whose stock has fallen as far as maybe the conversation suggests? Or is there a possibility that he could actually fall to the Leafs at, let's say, 22, 23?
Well, I quoted you and I tweeted this out. It's kind of a bit of a mistake if you see him drop outside the top 10 to that 11 to 13 range. It's going to be even more of a mistake if he drops outside of the top 20. And again, the big reason for him was his play away from the puck, not being engaged defensively, not using his size more to his advantage, kind of being that one-trick pony where has not necessarily developed a playmaking game, but he just relies solely on putting the puck in the net. And while goals are important, you just can't be one-dimensional like that. Kind of, not to put, that was kind of like the same situation with Patrick Laine, where he was one-dimensional, didn't have that playmaking aspect. Started to see it develop later on. But the big thing was, can he learn from that and develop and be more well-rounded? And when we talked to him, he said that, a lot of teams question that, and he knows that he needs to put in the work. And I think that's what's standing out right now, is that he knows that, yeah, I'm a good goal scorer, but he wants to be more. So that to me tells me that there should be teams that should be willing to select him if he's willing to put in the work, because we know how well he could score. He broke Cole Caulfield's record for the national team development program. By the way, it'll be interesting to see if he does go to Montreal. Is it going to be Cole Squared, or who is going to be who's going to have the goal moniker? Is it going to be Goal Eiserman or Goal Caulfield? So Montreal needs to figure that out, marketing wise, shirts, what have you.
Start now.
But yeah, I think in the U18s, I know we shouldn't like rely so much on one tournament. It's all like a full, scale of analysis when you look at players and when you scout. But I thought he used the size a little bit more to his advantage. Doesn't have the top end speed, but I thought he, used his body a little bit more in order to win battles, get those pucks, shield players off a little bit. Now, is it enough to keep him inside the top 15? I don't know, but the fact that Toronto did meet with him, maybe there's a chance that, like you said, either he does follow them, or if he's still available and there's a chance for them to move up. Like if they see that he's outside, like if pick 15 comes, Cole Eiserman's still on the board, I think Toronto is going to, I can't really read their minds, but if they have an opportunity to move up to select him and they know that he may not be there long, there's that chance. But yeah, it would be good to have that goal scorer on the wing again. I think the Maple Leafs need to fill out more of their wing spots than up the middle, and Cole Eiserman would definitely be a really great selection if they did.
Yeah, one suggestion that I think Alex made was that, it gives you kind of the feeling that maybe the Leafs are willing to move up in the draft, and that would be interesting as well.
Yeah.
With that, you'd probably lose out on a guy like Timothy Liljegren or somebody along those lines,
because they don't have that mid-round pick, that second or third.
So it'd be interesting to see what transpires on draft day if in fact that is a possibility. But yeah, definitely a guy that I think any team would be lucky to add. He is a big body. He plays big. He's got, like I said, one of the best shots in the draft, if not the best shot in the draft, and another guy that's going to go the NCAA route and go to BU and possibly play with Mac. Like I'm telling you, if all the stars align for Boston University right now, they should not even lose a game this season, because you could have Celebrini, you could have Pridham, you could have Cole Eiserman. This could be like an absolutely stacked team in the NCAA. So that'd be interesting to watch. But
also, Cole Hudson's going to be there too. Lane Hudson's younger brother is making that. He's going to do try and repeat what Lane did.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to watch and see what happens there as well. But all in all, man, the combine was a fun experience. It always is. I love talking to these kids before they make those big tickets and kind of get a feel for who they are as people. It's almost our chance, us as media, as like the 33rd team of the NHL, where we get to interview these kids and kind of get a feel for who they are and what kind of things they do. But it was a good time. Always good seeing you. Always good seeing Mark Shegg as well.
For sure, absolutely.
And getting a feel for some of the other people and what they're talking about as well. So it was a good experience. I'm excited for the draft. Obviously, if you get to go, you'll be excited for the draft as well in Vegas. It should be a fun time.
Not getting any work done.
No, that's right. That's right. You'll be no sleep, buddy. No sleep, Vegas.
Whatever's happening there is going to stay there. I'm not even going to talk about any of the stories on the pod.
That's right. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Anyways, before we close it out here, just a couple of quick notes as well. From a Leaf standpoint, looks like Lawrence Gilman, who was an assistant general manager of the Leafs and senior vice president of the Toronto Marlies, has mutually parted ways. That's coming from Pierre LeBrun on X. So obviously wishing him the best. The Canes just signed Jalen Chatfield to a 3-year contract at $3 million per, so $3 million AAV. Word is Darnell Nurse is in tonight. That's coming from Chris Knobloch. And then from an OHL standpoint, the Steelheads will kick off the 2025-26 season in Brampton. So they'll be relocating to Brampton. Some OHL news for you as well. Out kind of your direction, closer to home for you than it is for me. But I can't see the London Knights ever moving out of London with the fan base they have here. So
fair enough. Oh yeah. If they move, that's going to be a dark day for OHL hockey. I'm going to say that
will be a dark day for everybody. I think that's this organization. I talked to Sam Dickinson at the Combine about it, what this organization means to getting prospects ready, and he just obviously nothing but good things to say about the Hunters and the organization.
Yeah.
So they always have a first round pick in the draft. It's like, without question that there's always going to be a London Knight there. But anyways, as always, thank you to everyone that tuned in this afternoon. Big shout out to Alex and the French and Fried for their cup victory in Division 10 men's ball hockey out in the Niagara region. So congratulations to them. I know he had the new tarp on. He was looking forward to wearing it, but
selling hard right now.
Selling hard. That's right. So otherwise, check out Manscaped for 20% off plus free shipping and handling on the new Lawnmower 5.0 and the 5.0 Ultra Pack for smooth sack summer. Use code THPN. As always, if you're looking for tickets to any concerts, any sporting events this summer, make sure you check out SeatGeek as well, as it will be you can get $20 off your first purchase when you sign up as well. That's code Sticks in the Six. As well, use code THPN at DraftKings and lay that future on Bobrovsky for the Conn Smythe. I can guarantee you that that's going to be a likely win. Otherwise, as always, Peter, it's been fun. Make sure you check out the Hockey Writers and Peter's Hard Work. We're the place to go for the NHL Draft. We're closing in on that 140 mark for profiles.
8 away right now. We just hit 132 today.
So there you go. You can check out all the profiles done by all the fine writers over at the Hockey Writers. Otherwise, we will be back next week for episode 163 and hopefully a little bit more Maple Leafs news as we get into the dog days of summer. Otherwise, that's it for us here at Sticks in the Six. That's episode 162 from the Hockey Podcast Network.